Hello everybody, this is Mrs. Ellsworth. For this session we will be talking about measuring with the metric system, and I'm going to be quizzing you. So be ready to hit the pause button and quiz yourself so that you're ready and you're prepared. But okay, measuring with the metric system, and it's all about that base, Oh, and prefixes. Okay, what instrument do you use to measure mass? I'm going to be quizzing you, so just pause and then try and quiz yourself, because of course you're going to be quizzed at some point. Okay, here's a picture of it. What is the name of that instrument? Is it a balance or a scale? Electronic balance or just balance? Okay, what instrument did you use to measure volume? Okay, those are the instruments, but what are their names? The graduated cylinder is that first one, the overflow can that we use for water displacement. Well, we actually use the first two for water displacement. The ruler, which we use for finding volume of regular shaped objects like cylinders and cubes. The other two, though, were used for measuring either anything. You can measure regular or irregular shaped items. Okay, what instrument did you use to measure length? This one is probably one that you'd consider to be a no-brainer, but let's double check. Okay, what's the name of those two instruments? Rulers and a meter stick. What instrument did you use to measure temperature? Don't you love it when you know lots of the answers already? What's the name of that instrument? The thermometer. Okay, which of all of those instruments that you just saw, which ones were the hardest for you to remember? Because you need to practice them and make sure that you are knowledgeable of it. So often I go to lab groups and they are confused with mass and volume. So make sure that you know this and try to learn it. Spend some time on this. Okay, now we're going to be moving on to the next session, which you're going to be taking a quiz on this in the next 2 days, so beware. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about metric measurements, and it's about the prefixes and the suffixes that make the measurement, like kilograms or microliters. So let's check out a data table that would make it a whole lot easier for you to learn. Now you'll notice that in this table, just take a look at it, you've got prefixes here. We're missing some I'm going to talk about. Okay, and you've got the symbols in this section. Then what does the symbol represent for a value? And then also what its exponential form is. You'll notice that it goes from 0, which actually 10 to the 0 power is actually 1, and then it goes up by 1s, the exponents go up by 1s, and then they start hopping up 3 each time. And it's just a mirror image of this one. It goes to the 0.1, 0.01, and 0.001, and then it starts hopping up three spaces on the decimal each time. So this is how it's organized, and we need to learn these names and symbols for these. So let's first of all talk about the base unit, though. Now the base unit is it could either be meters, liters, or grams. It could be other ones. Degrees and seconds, they don't really use this too much for that. They use just the value for it. So it's mostly used for these ones for our purposes. There are other ones in the metric system and SI system, but these are the big 3 that we'll be talking about. Okay, for just talking sakes, let's just go and talk about meters only. So if I had 1 meter, okay, I wouldn't have to have a prefix on it. I would just have this suffix of a meter for 1 meter. Okay, now if I had 10 meters, okay, it would be deca. Okay, I've seen this also written with a DK, so the deca I don't think is used a whole lot. You do need to memorize it, unfortunately, but it's not used a whole lot. There are other measurements that you'll recognize that we do use a lot. Okay, if I have 100 meters, a hecto, which is shown with just an H, a lowercase h, Okay, if I have 1,000, you might recognize this one or even know the answer already. It would be a kilo. So a kilometer, okay, a kilo, and that's just with a little k. Now the next one you might not know, that's mega, and that is shown with a capital M. Okay, now let's look at the bottom part. If I was going to be talking about a decimal or a fraction of a meter, okay, the first one I'd be talking about is deci. For decimeter it would be. We're just talking about meters, but it could be also liters or grams. Okay, and then the next one down at 100th would be a centi. 100th centi, I kind of think of like century with that one. And so, and some people think of centipede. Okay, and that's shown with a little c, lowercase c. And then we've got milli. Lots of people do think of millipede with that one, and it's 1,000th. Okay, and let's see, the next one is micro. Okay, and this one's kind of different. It is the Greek letter mu. Oops, I've got another slide starting here. It's the Greek letter mu. It looks like a lowercase u with a tail on the front of it. Okay. Okay, now I was just going to show on here how you could put any one of these prefixes with the suffix of the base unit. Okay, and then you could put the name together, like kilometer in this case. If it's 100, if it's 1,000 meters, then it is going to be kilometer or kilometer. And it could be for any of these prefixes. It could also be for grams back here, a kilogram. You've probably heard of that. A kiloliter, you probably haven't heard of that, but milliliter, you would have heard of milliliter. So it just depends on what your base unit is, you know, for what you measured, and also what your prefix is. Now, I didn't ever mention it, but a little k and a little m for meters would be kilometers. And if you had millimeters, it'd be a little m for milli and a little m for meters. Okay, now this is the section I do expect you to memorize. And some of them shouldn't be too difficult, but you will have to memorize either the symbol or the prefix and matched up with the proper value that it represents. It could be either in the exponential form or it could be in the numerical form, standard form, and I probably will have that in a set of matching or fill in the blanks. I'm not sure just yet. I do think that this is kind of neat. You can look at this and maybe you can just memorize how these values go, and then it can help you with this little saying here: mighty King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And I'm missing the little micro here, but that's just the ones that I know. And I thought that might be a helper for you to learn your values on these. Again, the base unit could be several different possibilities. But I'm going to finish this with the slide right before it and just remind you that you do have a quiz tomorrow, and excuse me, not tomorrow, but the next day. So don't forget to study for it, and I will see you in class tomorrow.